Hello, Jamie. Hello, everyone.
Hey, Shadab. Hey, everybody out there in listening land.
Yep. And I think, Jamie, you know what this week is? This week has been actually one of the week when the 80th United Nations General Assembly is convening. And they're discussing a bunch of things, including, which we will cover today, the global dialogue on AI governance as part of the episode today. So we'll talk about that. Plus, we'll talk about some of the news coming out from like Accenture, full fiscal earnings report, and what that means for some of the AI impact on their workforce.
Yep. Yeah, we'll also get into some things on Medicare leveraging AI as well as additional rollout of Stargate.
And the world is
And
interesting. Now, Databricks offer the OpenAI models, and Microsoft Copilot and Copilot Studio offers Anthropic models.
yeah, we'll also touch upon a couple of things as it relates to OpenAI with their GPT Pulse and a few other things as it relates to Anthropic and Microsoft. So all that and more.
Stay tuned for a quick introduction. Greetings. Welcome to the AI Files podcast. If you're looking to stay up to date on the AI, this is the podcast for you. I'm Shadab Hussain. I'm the director of AI at Microsoft, and I'm your co-host.
Hello, everybody. Jamie Basilico, as you know already. I'm the other co-host here for the AI Files. My day job is a data and AI technical specialist and architect. And as a reminder, please note this is not an official Microsoft channel, so the views and opinions expressed by myself and Shadab are our own and do not represent the views of Microsoft.
I was talking about that 80th UN General Assembly, which is convening actually in New York. One of the items that they've discussed just past this Thursday in the week is around the global dialogue on the AI governance. So, United Nations has launched this initiative, and it's the first body dedicated on the international AI governance. So, the quote of the week is really, I found it very interesting. This is from Teron Acemoglu. He's actually a Nobel Prize recipient. Just in 2024, he was one of those three who received that Nobel Prize for the economics. And we'll talk about a little bit about that, what he did. But his quote was, quoting him, AI is the biggest threat that humanity has faced, unquote. Right? So that's really, I would say, alarmist. But that's what he said. He actually was at that UN session, and he talked about it before him when the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres he emphasized the need for a global AI ecosystem to match the pace of technological change. Um, Basically, they're trying to launch this global dialogue on AI governance because they feel that this technology is so impactful. Uh, it requires an international coordinated AI governance and regulatory framework, etc., things like that. Now, US has actually rejected this. So, US has rejected any international oversight of AI, opposing the centralized global governance efforts. Director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy, Michael Kratsios, he stated that the AI governance should respect national sovereignty and avoid any bureaucratic management. In fact, President Donald Trump also announced plans for a trusted AI verification system to support the Biological Weapons Convention, suggesting the UN could play a constructive role. So there was some like AI was relevant, pretty relevant this week at the UN. Now, another UN envoy for the digital tech, he said that no, UN is not seeking the top-down regulation, but aims to foster cooperation. And some of the European countries like Spain and China as well, they've actually supported this initiative. So as part of that, the UN will actually convene the first full meeting of the global dialogue in Geneva in summer 2026, alongside the AI for Good Summit. So and they're basically seeking nominations for new international scientific panel to assess AI's risk and opportunity. So AI continues to make waves, actually, including at the UN.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, we'll continue to see governments and then governmental body organizations like the UN try to position, regulations and rules around AI. Again, my personal belief is that we don't want to stifle innovation, but at the same time, there does need to be some type of oversight on the things that are being done. I don't know if I'd go as dire as what Darren had said, that it's the biggest threat to humanity. I could cite at least 5 other things that at least I would think are a little bit bigger threat to humanity. Things like nuclear proliferation, but AI, it's probably on the top 10 or maybe top 20, something like that. But, again, I see this as jockeying and who's going to be writing the laws or the rules. I know this administration in the United States has some of their own thoughts on that. And I even think I heard recently there may be some reigniting or development on the ways that our U.S. government um, may look at innovation around AI at the state level. So, it all kind of falls into that big thing. But I don't know, me personally, I'm not sure. It's not the biggest threat that
Yeah.
I would put down.
I mean, you know, you're absolutely right. I mean, the AI can trigger so many kind of different reactions. Not all of them we will agree. But there are, I think, some legitimate opinions and sides to it. It's hard to say, to be honest. Like I'm kind of become like I think I've started realizing and recognizing all these different aspects, and I think some sort of, as you said, some sort of a framework is required to govern it, um, without really stifling the innovation. I think, and it's the balance. I don't know if that balance is easy to achieve. I don't think it's easy to achieve. Otherwise, they would have done that.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on, Jamie. Accenture actually reported full fiscal year earnings, and here's the thing: as part of these earnings, and there were some quotations from the CEO Julie Sweet as well, that they will be laying off those who cannot be reskilled on AI. And she said that, quoting her, our number one strategy is upskilling, given the skills we need. And we have had lots of experience in upskilling. We are trying to, in a very compressed timeline, where we don't have a viable path for skilling, sort of exiting people so we can get more of the skills than we need, unquote. So, I wanted to highlight this one particularly because I do come from the, consulting and SI world as well. Jamie, I've spent considerable part of my career in that world. And I know some of the things, how it works, and which is pretty, I would say it is pretty applicable to all the different corporates and industries right now. I've seen people who essentially have become very, I would say, inward focused, and they kind of like, they find comfort zone working in something very specific and niche area, including like some internal applications, and they think that they're safe because of that. Unfortunately, I have seen that hasn't translated very well for lots of those folks. Well, when company needs it, you will be put on to support something, but then I would my advice would be that everybody to constantly review. We are at that time right now. Constantly review how pertinent you feel. Are you AI enabled? Are you using AI? Constantly look out for the metrics that the company is talking about. Look for the reskilling initiative that company is doing and take that head on. Don't be scared of it, because this is very reflective in this news as well, where she's saying that, look, we need people, and like she's talking about the AI strategic growth. For example, advanced AI bookings has doubled to $5.9 billion in FY25 for Accenture. AI revenue has jumped to $2.7 billion, which has tripled basically year on year. And the AI workforce had expanded from 40,000 to 77,000 employees since FY23. So there is a demand. But then what she's talking about is that we just cannot do it fast enough, that reskilling, even though we have done this reskilling pretty well, but we cannot do it. So we will rather let those people go and then hire others who bring that skills ready. And I think this is a time where you don't want to be in that boat, because it's much easier to reskill and upskill when you're in the company than outside it.
Right. And, everybody here that's a listener right now, or listening to this, watching to this, you're already ahead of the game. I mean, you're listening to a podcast or an episode of YouTube like we're putting out because you're interested in AI and you want to get ahead of the curve, and that's important. And tell your friends, come and listen to this as well, because this is a way of actually getting skilled, understanding what's going on and where to potentially put more focus on. So kudos to you folks who are here, because you do have that edge on others that are not. And I look at what what was said here by Accenture and by Miss Sweet, but the types of things that I come across in my discussions with organizations, training or skilling their people inevitably comes up in every customer conversation that I have, whether it's in the beginning or the end. Hopefully, it's more towards the beginning, but it's paramount. So this is on the mind of just about every organization. I only deal with the largest and the strategics here at Microsoft, but that's a main topic for everybody. I am dealing with one strategic account right now that they're looking to embark on a more ambitious AI effort, and that was one of the top things that they asked. Like, how do we build a strategy that can skill their own headcount, their own employees? It's something to certainly think about, look at, like retrospectively. What is your own level of comfort? Where do you see you need additional skilling? And put that out front, certainly within your own org, but you do have to take on some of your own ownership on that skilling to make you marketable. Exactly what you said. They're laying off people or letting some people go to bring on people that already have that skill, because that saves them time and money in terms of that training.
True. Very well said, Jamie.
So on from that note, so the next we'll do two quick rapid fire ones. One is Medicaid making the news, and it's all about using AI to make these healthcare decisions. So whether or not it's Medicaid, and I'm certainly not yet at a point where I've got Medicare or Medicaid, but I've dealt with this personally, where through my own health issues, whatever you want to call it, where you had to get pre-authorization for things. This is a major area within Medicare that they're looking to shorten the cycles for what it takes to get approval for X, whatever X may be. So this is something that was put out there for eliminating, I'm going to call it the red tape in prior authorizations. So starting in 2026 in 6 states here in the US, there's a program it's called the Wasteful and Inappropriate Service Reduction, otherwise known as WISER. And that the WISER program is looking to cut costs by automating care approvals, aka these prior authorizations for medical procedure work. So it's not that they're going to cut through WISER individuals that are looking at it, but this will be where humans can review the decisions of what AI determined of where prior authorizations were satisfied and or needed. So that's the intent. Obviously, it's to reduce that red tape, make things quicker, and Medicare is certainly one area that is not quick. So there's certainly some detractors from this. There are some skeptics, lawmakers and doctors alike. In my opinion, obviously, we work with AI all the time. I think it could work wonders, and I think this is one area that it certainly could see some advantages as it relates to quickening the pace for authorizations. So that's one part. Another quick piece in the news: AI, as it relates to OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank. As part of Stargate, they've unveiled 5 new U.S. data centers under the Stargate umbrella, and this obviously would boost the infrastructure related to this AI endeavor. Nearly 7 gigawatts and $400 billion to be invested, and this supports the ongoing expansion of what OpenAI is needed and or doing for their next gen research. Maybe that's GPT-6, right? Who knows, whatever that's going to be. But it's really to create this new environment to spur on innovation while also spurring on thousands of jobs. So there's going to be 3 new sites. One is in Shackelford County, Texas. The other one is in Donna Ana County in New Mexico, and a third in an undisclosed at this point Midwest location. And again, this is all part of that existing partnership between OpenAI and Oracle. I think Oracle was in the news just a little while ago, just talking about obviously them providing a bunch of GPUs to OpenAI. So this will add on to the existing things that they've already identified and or announced. And there are 2 additional sites a little bit further behind. One's in Lordstown, Ohio, and the other one in Milam County in Texas as well. So these are also being developed with SoftBank and focusing on scalable as well as energy efficient infrastructures, which I know we talked about before. XAI was spinning up some new data centers, but doing it based upon let's just say not so efficient energy drivers. So this whole effort is also to be energy efficient as well. So anyway, those are 2 quick fire rapid news articles.
It just made me chuckle, Jamie, a little bit, because you might have seen some of those memes going on where OpenAI gives $300 billion to Oracle. Oracle gives $300 billion to NVIDIA, and NVIDIA invests back in the OpenAI $300 billion. It's like a perpetual money loop.
Yeah, exactly. One person's got the hand in the other person's hand, and it just keeps on going around.
Yeah, but that's what the economy is, right? I mean, the economy is like nothing but the movement of the money, right? It's not like generating the money necessarily. So nothing wrong.
On a side note, and again, this will turn into a financial podcast pretty soon, but I was listening to another podcast, and it made total sense that the reason why all these announcements with the megastructures isn't necessarily where they're going to start building things like right away, but it's about providing the fact that there is the assigned contract, because without contract or without intent, then money can't be loaned out. So this is sort of like, all right, we're going to do this, and that's the intent part, and that helps then organizations like SoftBank be able to do the funding because they know that there is purchase coming. So anyway, goes back to that meme of like, as you said, the whole money circle. So
yeah.
Anyway, back to AI. Definitely not a financial analyst.
Okay, well, let's stick to that. All right, Jamie, another news, Databricks and OpenAI. There's another angle of the relationship here. Databricks and OpenAI has announced a multi-year partnership to make OpenAI's models natively available within the Databricks data intelligence platform and Databricks flagship AI product, Agent Breaks.
Yeah,
Now, this is
I'll tell you this. I was a little shocked when I saw this headline, but go ahead.
I wasn't really shocked, because remember that just a few months ago, Databricks had done the same thing with the Anthropic. So I thought that it is something smart on the part of the Databricks, because I think Databricks has realized that, remember that they came out with some models like Dolly and all those things, and they were like in $100 you train. Well, that never panned out, to be honest. So I think they have pivoted back to relying on the partnerships. And with if Anthropic was there, the OpenAI is inevitably following there. Now, here's the thing. The thing is that this unfortunately is a very small figure. To be honest, just $100 million partnership. Jamie, there's no billion here. But it does bring OpenAI models to the Azure Databricks, and which means that it now kind of opens another channel for the customers to use it. Now, everybody knows the OpenAI is exclusively available in Azure. So you use that in the Azure OpenAI, but then also you can make direct calls to the OpenAI APIs, which also is hosted in Azure, but you don't have to be an Azure tenant to do that. You can make direct calls there. Now, this provides another option. For example, a customer who is either an Azure Databricks, or if they're using Databricks in AWS or GCP, it gives them an ability to use OpenAI models directly from within the Databricks without having to make an account call.
And that's what I was just going to ask too, because when I read this, I didn't see anything that popped out that it was Databricks on all platforms. So it is the ability to use the OpenAI models on Databricks running on AWS, correct?
Yes, it's on all the platforms. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and that's the part that I was surprised a little bit about. Yeah, again, just knowing the partnership between Microsoft and OpenAI, because obviously Microsoft has had a, whether or not you want to call it a stranglehold or at least a leading.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking for the right word. Stranglehold's probably not the right one, but a exclusive relationship to deploy and serve the OpenAI models. So now it's more than just Azure. It's potentially other platforms through Databricks.
Jimmy, absolutely right that yes, it was surprising, but I thought given the another news putting together, then it probably made sense to me. I thought that it was a good deal done, because now Microsoft is also offering Anthropic Claude models as part of the Copilot Studio, and we'll talk about that a little bit shortly. I thought that this was a coordinated move. I'm hoping it was like well coordinated and in good spirit among all the partners to let both of the parties expand a little bit beyond the models.
Yeah, basically, I look at it this way: 2 years ago, everybody was exclusive. Now everybody's
Yeah.
inclusive. Everybody's playing nicely with everybody, somewhat.
Good for customers, right? I mean, they're getting choices.
So yeah, I think that's overall it's good. I mean, I certainly deal with a lot of customers using Databricks, and maybe if they're not using, if they're on Azure directly, this gives them another avenue for using it, and if they're on AWS, then it opens up some potential somewhere.
Yep.
So speaking of OpenAI, they have some new features. So this one is actually called GPT Pulse. It's a new feature that OpenAI is it's basically building to proactively deliver personalized updates. So basically, this is done asynchronously. So it's doing research overnight and presents it as daily updates in the form of visual cards to the user based upon your interests and goals. Um, so if you're okay with that, I think it's great because it actually curates the things that you're interested the most in, and you're able to provide feedback, and it specifies various different topics. And again, whether or not you're interested in local events, politics, AI, it's going to provide those things. And obviously, it's something that is connected with the things that you do. So connected with Gmail or calendar. So it's going to be able to integrate with those things that you run and use on a personal level, because that's how it is able to collect and provide things back. Now, obviously, you're able to control and expand the things that are it's collecting and providing those updates and requests. So will be interesting to see what's the uptick and how many people are actually using it. As far as I understand, this is only being rolled out, at least right now, to the pro users. The highest level, obviously, it will come to plus. I do have a plus subscription, so I'd be eager to see what it's doing. And the reason why I say that, I have chats that are all over the place. I have chats that focus in on AI. I have chats that relate to weather. I have chats that relate to. I was literally doing something off the wall where we were listening to a political podcast, and we needed. I say we. It was me and my wife that we wanted to go research some stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what this Chat GPT Pulse does, because my interests are like everywhere. So it'll probably get confused and like, what are you thinking? But I'll give it maybe a little bit more credit and see what it does once I get my hands on it. So, overall, in all seriousness, this is about a uh, slightly future glimpse and maybe where we're going, where, the intent of Pulse is really to get a broader sense of who you are. And I think these AI tools are going to go in that direction. So it not only answers like your direct questions that you have, like I just said, I was all over the place, but it's going to make progress in terms of anticipating the needs and proactively giving you the information. Now, I'll take a book out of a movie, and I don't know if anyone has actually seen this, but there's a movie called Minority Report. We could talk about the merits of that movie, but Basically, when the main character wakes up, there's a whole slew of information in the morning, and they're able to sift through and or like doing their daily work job. I kind of equate this in the same thing. We get up in the morning and then we see this level of info. Now, one other comment that I'll make, and it's not exactly Pulse, but it's still somewhat related. I have, and again, this might be something that you maybe people may have forgotten already, but you can do scheduled tasks within ChatGPT. So I have tasks that run, and I come when I wake up in the morning, they're there and I read it. Now, the thing that's different is it's not looking at the things that I've done. It's literally a chat, and I say, go out and go grab some news or things about the weather. And I get that. But versus this, which is going to be like, hey, what did Jamie do in the last 24 hours? Let me give an update and things like that. So it's taking the scheduled tasks, but to a much greater level in terms of personality and making it personal to you.
And Jamie, I would say I'm actually thrilled with this feature. I do want to. I don't have the pro subscription. Hopefully, it will come to the Pulse. Sorry, the Plus, and then we can use it. But there are two things. You know, one of the challenges, it's like those early Netflix days. You used to have one account, and then, of course, within the household, everybody is using it, and I'm getting recommendation on anime which I've never watched, and or like essentially, everybody, all five members are watching different content, and then the recommendations are going haywire because it's like mixing up all the recommendations. It doesn't know until we started making the profiles, right? That is where the personalization actually really took off, because now everybody's choices are being preserved, right, and being used in that personalized manner. Now, the problem with the chat gpt is the same problem. Today I have an account, and of course, in my household my daughters also use it. But then how will it know? Because now it's gonna get all those mixed signals. So I would say that there is a strong need for, I think, creating similar profiles within a household, because not everybody's not gonna have to take a plus subscription within the household. So my teenage daughters, they actually need a profile. So I would say this will be helpful, but I would strongly recommend ChatGPT to actually create a profile section so that this truly can be personalized. Otherwise, it will be more, family level recommendation.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, it'll get mixed up with if you got a family of 4 or 5, you'll get everybody in that
Correct.
recommendation.
Okay, and another thing, Jamie, just quickly, we talked about this a little bit already, but anthropic models are now available in Copilot Studio and Copilot. The anthropic models, which is particularly Cloud Sonnet 4 and Opus 4.1, are now available alongside OpenAI models in Microsoft Copilot Studio, as well as a researcher agent in Copilot. Now, this is the opt in. So, somebody has to go in the M365 admin and then opt in to include that. These are not default models. The default model remains OpenAI GPT models. So, somebody has to do that. Plus, the organizations also have an authority to actually go there in that setting and then block that altogether. So they can actually, so it's not at par with the OpenAI choices, but it's an additional choice that is being expanded. Now, of course, there are some people who are in love with the Anthropic model, so they may want to try to see. The people will try to see, okay, if I'm using the researcher agent, by the way, that's a fantastic agent, right? You and I, we have used that a lot. All our colleagues use it, customers use it. It's a really, really good researcher agent. We use that a lot. And yeah, for some time, I would like to see what Claude actually returns as part of those reports. So far, my experience has been fantastic. So OpenAI models do a pretty good job as part of the researcher agent. Now, the only thing is that remember that Microsoft has certain commitments. There are product terms, because the Azure OpenAI is a actually classified as a Azure Direct model. So there are product terms, there are data processing addendum, there are commercial copyright commitment. All of that comes in play when you use the GPT models in any of those Microsoft services. The moment you actually go to the Anthropic, then all of that goes out of the window, because now it's not Azure Direct model. The data processing is different because it has to go outside to wherever it is hosted in AWS or GCP. And then also the copyright commitment is also void if you're using the Anthropic model. So people have to be just aware of what that means.
Yep. Yeah, and you bring up a good point there. It's about that direct model because there's a lot that's layered in on top of the Azure OpenAI models themselves. Extra level of security, extra level of content safety, as well as then just the copyright protection that is inherent within that. So there are nuances, but it will be interesting to see the result set. I just double checked actually my own environments for Copilot, and it still hasn't popped up for me, both either my work side or personal. But I do know some of my peers that are on internal Microsoft pilot rings. It just started showing up for them on yesterday, which was Friday, the
True.
26th of September. So it should be rolling out if you haven't seen it already shortly.
That is true. I think you have to be part of that. For me, actually, the researcher agent in my M365 has already popped in.
Oh, really?
So if you go
Okay.
to the researcher agent, you will see that. Um,
I'm gonna check it out after we. I
and
actually
yeah.
fired off a researcher this morning, but I was again. I use Copilot all the time. I was literally walking the dog and I fired off a researcher, but I was using
Uh-huh.
my phone, so I didn't look at the interface. So now I'm interested. I got to see what the researcher compiled, and I'll look to see what if the Anthropic models are there.
Yeah, that's true. It's always fun to, we love new toys,
Yeah.
Jamie.
Oh,
So
of course.
talking about toys, tell me more about some other toys.
Speaking of toys, this is a great segue. So, I've had my main. I've got so many different machines. I literally have one, two, three, four. I've got four, five,
Oh, man.
either laptops or um, towers, literally just around me in this one room. Let alone other parts of the house. But my main home computer was relatively old. That say it was maybe 6 or 7 years old, and in our span of technology, that's old. So I had a choice of, all right, do I get just a regular run of the mill PC and bring it up to today's standards, or do I go a little bit heavier? And since we do a lot with AI, and I've wanted to do a little bit more of using AI locally, do I get something that's a little bit more powerful? So I ended up getting a more of a gaming PC, but the gaming PCs are really hefty on GPUs. So I got one of the latest NVIDIA GPUs. It's the NVIDIA 5070 Ti, which is loaded with 16 gig of GPU dedicated. It's got an NPU on it, as well as 24 cores of a i9 Intel and 64 gigs of RAM. So a pretty big box. Now, why am I telling you all this? Well, we're in an AI podcast. One of the things that we talk about learning is how is it different to actually use an AI model that would be serviced, whether or not it's from OpenAI, or if it's from Microsoft through Azure, or if it's through Gemini, or even the AWS environments. That's an online service, but what about running models locally? And we've certainly talked a lot about large language models and also introduced the concepts of small language models. So the idea is, can we take small language models and run them on our own hardware? So that's exactly what I'm going to show you, is that PC. So here it
Interesting.
is. Yeah, so this is my shiny new machine. You can see I brought up the task manager. I'm going to be looking this way. So like I said, I've got multiple monitors. I literally have four of
Mhm.
them around me. So forgive me from looking away from the camera, but
I know.
um,
I don't mind. I will not think that you are ignoring me, Jamie. No worries.
so I've got this GPU. You can see I've got 16 gigs of RAM, but I've got something running. So this is a little segue. I've got something that's eating up almost all of my GPU right now. It's roughly 15.4. I've got this thing somewhat pegged. It's also pulling in some memory from my machine as well. So that's what happens on these things. It uses dedicated GPU as well as memory in the machine. And you can see I've got 64 gigs. I'm already using 18 of this. I am always using something that's memory hungry. So having 64 gigs of RAM is a nice luxury. This is a 2 terabyte um, drive as well, which is important because of what I'm about to show you. So there's um, this is a free tool. It's called LM Studio, and obviously LM language model studio. So what this enables me to do is it's a user interface that provides chat interface for me. It provides not only that, but it's also an environment where I can actually use APIs against this model where it aligns with the OpenAI API. So I could actually do local development hitting these models. Now, where are their models? So this is the discovery piece. So I could discover models that, and basically they have an inventory or a catalog of the various different models. And you can see here, there's literally just a ton of different models that are available. And I could do it based upon best match. I could sort by like most downloads. So in essence, they're pulling models from Hugging Face and other resources for those models that are, um, I'll call it either small or medium language models. So for me, number one, it'll take a look at my hardware, tell me what I have, what's being used. I can tell it different resources like, hey, if I've got a smaller GPU, what to allocate towards that, or how much do I want to bring in. Right now, and the reason why so it knows that I've got a GPU and it's using obviously my GPU, and this is aligning with CUDA, which is a way of actually, again, bringing the power of these NVIDIA's CUDA, which is an architecture for this. So this is, again, the latest version of the GPU, has a lot of power into it. So if I look at this model search again, I do have models that I've already pulled into my environment. So I've got Mistral that's you're being shown here, but let me go to this. So these are the models that I pulled down. And part of the reason why I said I've got a 2 terabyte hard drive is these models, they're not small. So you can see the 3 models that I pulled down. So one, we talked about OpenAI. They actually just updated their OSS, their open source model with the open weights. And this is their 20 billion parameter model. I did not try to pull down their 120 billion one. That would be too much. So this is 12 gigs just in that model alone that's sitting on this computer. I also pulled down the latest Mistral model. This one just got released like a week ago. And if you notice the tagging on here, so this tells me, there's different tools that can be used, but this Mistral model also accepts imaging, or that's a vision-based model. And I also pulled down the Google Gemma 3 model, the 27 billion parameter. So, you definitely need a lot of space for these things, because if you started pulling down model after model, you will very quickly, probably eat up, it's certainly a 1 terabyte drive, let alone a 2 terabyte drive. So I've got this model, the Google one, but like I said, I could switch any one of these models. What it does is it wipes that model out of my GPU, and then it loads that new model in. The reason being is you want these models in memory and you want them in GPUs, which is why NVIDIA is doing so well right now. Anytime you really want to use these models, or any large language or small language models, you need the power of that tooling. So you can see here, this is an interface. So I could say, new interface, LM Studio. I could literally start typing, how are tornadoes formed? This is my typical demo that I do everywhere. So it's coming back. It's literally that large language model in my machine answering it. So there's probably one thing you're going to notice right away. It's the tokens generated per second. You don't see that blazingly fast generation that I would if I went to OpenAI or if I went to Gemini. The reason everything is happening locally on my machine. So again, it's the same answers. It's literally the same model if I went to Gemini and changed the model selector, but it's all running here locally. Part of that is, if I pull this down locally and if I'm a developer, I don't have any API costs. I'm running everything locally. Now, granted, I just spent a boatload of money on this machine. So I bet if I added up all the tokens I'm running, and it probably would have taken a little while, but this is my model. It's based upon anything that I want to do. So there's guardrails that are not there that would have been there in the actual service going to Gemini or going to Mistral. Like I said, this thing or this model has input capability, so it's multimodal. I'm a big Star Wars and Star Trek fan, so I just brought in an image of myself in a museum with Star Wars, and I'll just say, describe this image, make it fun. Spelled image wrong.
Model is busy.
It's still answering my last one. Wow, really, I should have told it to give it to me as like a fifth grader. So yeah, I mean, I could stop what it's doing now. Let me do that and then just fire this one off. So now, it's doing what it's, here's me, Star Trek. I'm in the Captain Kirk. So, it literally is it's everything that you would do within Gemini. Again, like I said, I'm using the Gemma 3 27B parameter model. I could switch models. And again, that offloads all of that model information from my GPU and would just load up the next one. And if I, again, go back to my GPU, you could see, it's actually doing work now for what it needs to look at. And, all of that model is loaded into my GPU and you can tell it's finished. So at least it looks like it's doing something a little bit, but all the work when it was actually doing its analysis or figuring out what it needed to do with my request was happening at that point. So again, this is a very simplistic, view into use of LLM Studio. There's a lot in here with LLM Studio. I can change appearance. I can, change some things. I can change the system prompts. So, if I wanted to give this model different instructions, I could do that here. I could also do that into the model card. So if I, said under that Gemma model, what are some of the things that I want to change about that? GPU offloading, all these different things. If I want to do flash attention, so there's a lot of tweaks that I can do just in here alone, let alone just changing the prompt and the structure. So, again, if you're ever interested in doing your own local, highly recommend LM Studio. This is a free tool, open source. But I searched and researched a couple of different tools and products, and this is by far the most simplest to use and pretty sophisticated in and of what it gives you. So hopefully that was an interesting tour, and maybe gave you the reason for going out and buying the next piece of hardware.
Yeah, Jamie, this is amazing. You know how I feel like? I feel like that, kid in the toy store, and I want to throw some tantrum in the alley. I want this toy.
Yeah, it's really cool, to say the
Mom,
least.
I want this toy.
Yeah, and part of the reason why I wanted to go this route. I've got a lot of endeavors going. Obviously, we do this podcast and staying up to the date on things that you could do from a local standpoint, but I also do development. So, trying to do some of the things locally. And since this tool set aligns with the OpenAI APIs, which is what I develop with, I use OpenAI models exclusively. for the applications that I built, this is a great way of actually doing some of that testing locally and then taking it up for deployment inside of Azure.
Awesome. I think this is a great way to actually test out and the SLMs and some of the other open source models as well.
Yep. So with that, maybe that got added to your birthday or Christmas list, but hopefully it was enjoyable. And like I said, it's a fun little way to play around with the models.
That's true. It was fun. Hope everybody enjoys it. We'll talk next week. Bye, Jimmy. Bye,
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye.